Oh, hey, everybody. It's Richard. I teach avalanche classes. I have for a long time. I teach them for the Outdoor Adventure Club here in California. And I do it a little bit differently, I think, than most instructors because I really focus on trying to help people make sense of what the avalanche advisory is telling us each day. I'm not trying to fill your head with a ton of information you don't know what to do with. I want to make sure you can make sense of what's happening in the avalanche advisory. So let's take a look at a recent advisory. This is from January 5th of this year in Tahoe, a day that had a lot of avalanche activity. By my count, there were 11 avalanches observed that were reported to the Sierra Avalanche Center. 3 of those had human involvements. One of those was someone who was caught and carried but did not get buried. One was caught, carried, buried up to their neck, and their partners dug them out with no injuries, I believe. And the third, unfortunately, was a victim was fully buried and did not survive. So sad day in the backcountry in Tahoe. Sad and very active avalanche day in the backcountry. The interesting thing about that day is that all 11 of those avalanches, and this repeats, all 11 of those avalanches happened right where the Avalanche Center's advisory said, hey, this is where you can go and start avalanches today. And the avalanche advisory said that the danger rating was considerable, which tells us that, so right in the definition, human-triggered avalanches are likely. So it shouldn't have been a surprise that avalanches were happening, and it shouldn't have been a surprise where they happened because they were forecasted to go right there. Here's what the avalanche advisory said. Wind slabs in these locations with this likelihood in these size. The thing that I want to introduce, the one thing I'm going to suggest you consider putting into your practice, and maybe this will help you make better decisions, help you make more sense of the advisory, is to read this section of the avalanche advisory in the first person. Not that there's a thing called wind slabs, but that you have to go out and interact with wind slabs. Here's how I do it. So today I have to deal with wind slabs. That's the problem I'm dealing with. I am going to interact with wind slabs if I go into this terrain. If I go into northwest, north, northeast, east, southeast aspects that are near and above tree line, I am going to interact with wind slabs. If I do interact with a wind slab, it is likely that I will trigger an avalanche. And if I do trigger an avalanche, the size of that avalanche is going to be large. D2 plus actually in this example. And D2 simply means it's big enough to kill me. So when I read this, it is, if I go out today, I need to be ready to manage wind slabs. If I go on to northwest, north, northeast, east, or southeast facing slopes that are near and above tree line and are in avalanche terrain, I should expect that I am going to trigger an avalanche. It is likely to happen. And if I trigger that avalanche, it will be big enough to kill me. And I think if we frame the avalanche problem in the first person, it'll help us make more sense of what the forecasters are telling us each day, and we'll be able to make better decisions to manage our own risk while we're traveling in the backcountry. I hope that helps.